Well, with me is Ben Hamilton-Baillie, the man behind the video you may have seen online that the Department of Infrastructure put out recently. Poynton was a particular place of interest, and I've been looking at that, talking to people who have been through it, and various views have come back. But this is what it's all been looking at. You had this area, there was a nightmare with 2 lanes of traffic everywhere, Arctics going through, sure. And you're looking at a way of trying to claim it back so people could walk around, but also the cars could get through. You reduced those lanes down, and you put in sort of roundabouts that weren't roundabouts, which we...
Roundels.
Roundels, yes, I was just trying to remember that name. It's great. I must put that in my dictionary. Mm-hmm. The thing is, I spoke to somebody actually used it, and they didn't like it at all. They said it was really tricky. I think it's shocker than you, would you say, sometimes when people come to it?
A lot of drivers write to me or speak to me and say, I really don't like it. I felt very unsafe driving through here. To which the response is, that's great. Good.
Because it makes you slow down.
Absolutely. If you're driving half a ton of metal, you shouldn't feel too at ease.
Right.
So a degree of surprise, uncertainty, unpredictability can be very useful, particularly for road safety, because it increases awareness of the surroundings. So I make no apologies for making drivers have to take particular care and think carefully.
The scheme was a couple of £1 million, wasn't it? And it's
Poynton scheme, yeah.
It's quite a small area considering what we're talking about here in the Isle of Man, though, isn't it?
Yes, it's a crossroads town with a high street. Yeah. So it was built in 2 phases with a complete regeneration of their high street and the major intersection.
I mean, there were some pictures that shows it's been already damaged by presumably heavy vehicles have gone through there. They've had to do some work on it. So I mean, have you learned some lessons from that before this starts?
I mean, there are a lot of lessons learnt in how to construct a really robust finish. I mean, on the whole, I'm pretty pleased. It survives an enormous pounding. I mean, Poynton is carrying 26 to 27,000 vehicles a day.
But they're going to get bypass soon, aren't they?
They are, with a high proportion of HGVs. But when we were working on it, the bypass was not on the agenda. Right. So we had to work with the traffic levels that pertain at the time.
Just tore you out of frame. For people in the Isle of Man to get an idea of what is envisaged, would North Quay be the nearest we've got to that sort of area? Do you know that?
Yes, I mean that has some characteristics which are similar, as do many informal spaces where vehicles and people interact, whether it's a supermarket car park or a campsite or a marketplace. You can see the same change from assuming that the state will look after me, I simply drive along and respond to the signals, to what's going on around me, who's there, am I likely to encounter children or older people or someone crossing the road. And the speed with which drivers adapt to an integrated environment, as one might call it, is remarkable. Driving is a very high order skill.
Blackpool went for it, and then they sort of got cold feet about the whole thing. And there is a journalist friend of mine puts up pictures on Facebook of this roundel or roundabout, we even call it, and they have accidents all the time. They've tried putting up signs and arrows, people still bump into it. Why is it not working there? And why would it work?
They made the mistake of going halfway. Right. They tried it on a hopelessly too short a length, sandwiched between 2 heavily signal controlled junctions. So the drivers are being given contradictory messages. On the one hand, this is a highway, and this is the lights turn green, this should be my right of way. And then suddenly there's all sorts of things going on around the comedy carpet and the front. The lesson, I think, from Blackpool and indeed from many other schemes is that you have to be comprehensive about this.
Embrace the whole thing.
You have to embrace the whole thing. You can't try and mix 2 different messages to drivers.
What is the danger, though, of people thinking it's theirs? Kids obviously won't have that sort of thing that they're on a pavement so much. The horse trams are going along as well. There is an inherent danger for some people in society, maybe
of course,
the vulnerable.
Life is inherently dangerous, but I mean, so far, all of the studies of schemes that have adopted this approach have seen, although the total number of incidents remains about the same, the severity of accidents reduces significantly. So you have less people KSI, killed or seriously injured, as the expression goes.
And Poynton has had good results as far as less Injuries?
So far, we've just had our 3rd anniversary of its completion, and the injury rate is significantly lower than it was before the work started.
I've asked before to other people about the blind people who have completely no reference, and a guide dog who doesn't know where to stop because there is no...
Yeah, I mean, guide dogs are...
there's no beeps anymore.
No, there's no beeps anymore.
What's going to do
and a lot of people say, well, how do I know a vehicle has stopped? Well, the answer is you never can. Neither do the beeps or the turning, no, it doesn't tell you the vehicle has stopped. It tells you the lights have changed, and that's a different thing. And the difficulty with signal control crossings is that they don't tell you that the traffic has stopped. It only takes a driver to make a mistake, or indeed for somebody to step out when the light is showing green, for that to be a very serious accident. So what the benefit for someone who's blind or partially sighted or elderly or what have you, is the overall lower speed environment allows you much greater options for not just crossing the road, but for interacting with the space around generally. And because drivers are no longer faced with a green light, they no longer assume they have priority over that space. And so whilst understandably many of the organisations who have worked within the old style framework have concerns about removing signals and controls, so far the experience is once they're in place, you find a much more comfortable and safe environment.
But you're going to slow everyone down, aren't you? I mean, the promenade already is pretty horrible. You're just going to make it slower still. Although you're saying it's going to be a less of a stop-start experience.
Well, I mean, this is interesting because counterintuitively there seems to be benefits from a low-speed, continuous flow environment. In Poynton, we had desperate congestion before the work started. It took 20 minutes on average to get through Poynton. Since we introduced a lower speed environment, it takes less time to get through Poynton because continuous flow, low speed movement appears to be more efficient than the stop-start associated with signals.
I think I read though it's less than the speed of a pedestrian in places. It's that sort of slow, really
What, the
slow.
design speed?
Well, no, just the way it's going. It's, you know, in peak times in
Sure,
Poynton, it's really slow. But you might be moving, but
it's congested. You mustn't assume that you get rid of congestion. A lot of people say there's only one thing worse than congestion, and that's things no congestion. Because a town that has no congestion has no life. I mean, every successful town will be congested. It will continue to exist, and of course there'll be delays.
Okay. In years to come, this video will be up there for hundreds of years and everything. I mean, this is probably the biggest change that Douglas is going to see. And it is the showcase. People get off the boat, whatever. The promenade is a thing. You have every confidence this is going to work?
Sure. I mean, making predictions is always tricky, especially about the future, as they say. But I think that this approach is the sensible one for Douglas to take, particularly in the light of the quality of the promenade and some of the buildings that front it. It's a wonderful asset to have, and that rebalancing the relationship between traffic and the quality of public space will be essential, I think, to underpin the future economy of this.